Imagine inside your body there is a silent army, working day and night to defend your bones, protect your heart, and even shield your brain. 3 commanders lead this army: vitamin D3, vitamin K2, and magnesium. When they move in harmony, they create a health symphony: strength, resilience, and vitality. But when one goes missing, the music collapses. And what once gave life, can slowly turn into danger. Let's start with vitamin D3, often called the sunshine vitamin. Just a few rays of sunlight can turn your skin into a powerful factory, producing D3, the signal that tells your gut to absorb calcium. Without it, more than half of the calcium you eat simply slips through your digestive system, wasted. This is why vitamin D deficiency is tied to weak bones, osteoporosis, and fractures in millions of people worldwide. But here's the shocking twist: when vitamin D3 works alone, it becomes a double-edged sword. Yes, it pulls calcium into your blood. But without proper guidance, that calcium doesn't always go where it should. Instead of strengthening your skeleton, it can harden your arteries. Instead of protecting your frame, it can stiffen your heart. That's where vitamin K2 steps in, the unsung hero of bone and heart health. For decades, scientists overlooked it, confusing it with vitamin K1, the clotting vitamin. But K2 has a very different mission. It activates proteins that act like traffic officers for calcium, directing it into your bones and teeth, while sweeping it out of dangerous places like your arteries, kidneys, and joints. Consider this: the famous Rotterdam study found that people with higher K2 intake had a 57% lower risk of dying from heart disease. Over half the risk, erased, simply because calcium was guided to the right places. Without K2, your body can quietly build up calcium in all the wrong spots, like rust-clogging pipes, silently choking off blood flow while you believe you're protecting your bones. And then comes the third commander, magnesium. More than 300 chemical reactions in your body depend on it. But its relationship with vitamin D is especially critical. Without enough magnesium, vitamin D stays locked, like a treasure chest with no key. You might have plenty of D3 floating in your blood, but it can't activate, can't enter your cells, can't switch on the genes that keep you alive. Magnesium is that key. It unlocks vitamin D, transforming it into its active form so it can do its life-saving work. A 2018 study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition revealed that people with higher magnesium levels had much better vitamin D status, even when they took smaller doses of supplements. Which means this: without magnesium, your expensive vitamin D pills may be doing little to nothing. So the truth is this: D3, K2, and magnesium are not soloists. They are a trio. A golden trio. Take them together, and they form a shield that strengthens your bones, safeguards your heart, and supports your entire body. But split them apart, and what you thought was protection could quietly become harm. Now, picture what happens when all three work together. Vitamin D3 absorbs the calcium. Vitamin K2 directs it into your bones. And magnesium unlocks the entire process, ensuring that vitamin D can even function in the first place. It's like building a house. D3 brings the bricks. K2 is the builder who places those bricks in the right spots. And magnesium is the architect making sure the blueprint is followed correctly. Remove just one piece, and the house begins to crumble. The danger is real. Studies estimate that up to 50% of people worldwide are deficient in vitamin D. More than 80% may not get enough vitamin K2. And as many as 70% are lacking magnesium. That means millions are walking around with brittle bones, clogged arteries, and weakened immunity, while believing that one daily D3 capsule will save them. Think about this. Calcium that ends up in the wrong places doesn't just threaten your heart. It can form kidney stones, stiffen joints, and even contribute to dementia by hardening the blood vessels in your brain. Researchers have discovered that arterial calcification is one of the strongest predictors of early death, even more so than cholesterol. And here's the tragedy: this calcification often accelerates when vitamin D is taken without vitamin K2. But here's the good news. Add K2, and studies show that calcium deposits in arteries can actually shrink, reversing some of the damage. That's not just prevention, it's healing. Meanwhile, magnesium deficiency has been called the silent epidemic. It doesn't always show up clearly on blood tests, yet it's linked to high blood pressure, irregular heartbeats, migraines, and anxiety. Without magnesium, high doses of vitamin D can even become harmful, because the body can't process it properly. In one study, people who took vitamin D without enough magnesium saw their blood calcium levels climb dangerously high, a condition called hypercalcemia, which can damage the heart and kidneys. But those with adequate magnesium handled vitamin D smoothly, without side effects. Nature never designed our bodies to work with nutrients in isolation. It was never meant for us to swallow one pill and ignore the rest. That's why traditional diets, rich in sunshine, leafy greens, fermented foods, and mineral-rich water, naturally delivered this trio in harmony. Only in our modern supplement culture did we separate them, and in doing so, create problems that nature had already solved. So the question isn't whether vitamin D3, K2, or magnesium are safe. The question is, are you giving your body all three, in balance? Because together, they don't just protect bones, they protect life itself. They lower the risk of fractures, heart attacks, strokes, diabetes, and even depression. A Japanese study found that people who ate natto, a fermented soybean dish rich in K2, had significantly lower fracture rates. A Harvard study revealed that higher magnesium intake was linked to a 30% reduction in sudden cardiac death. And countless trials confirm that vitamin D deficiency is tied to weaker immunity, more respiratory infections, and even higher cancer risk. So the next time you hear someone say, "I'm taking vitamin D for my bones," remember, that's only part of the story. Without K2, that calcium may never reach the bones. Without magnesium, vitamin D may never activate. And without balance, what was meant to heal can quietly harm. This is the power of synergy, the strength of nutrients designed by nature to work together. Sunlight, soil, and food on your plate were never created to be separated. They were created to be whole. And here lies the deeper lesson. Health is not a single pill, not one vitamin, not a miracle cure. It is balance. It is honoring the design of the human body and giving it the full orchestra of nutrients it needs to play the symphony of life. When vitamin D3, vitamin K2, and magnesium unite, they don't just build bone. They build resilience, vitality, and longevity. They form a shield of protection, from the inside out. And that, my friend, is not just science. That is survival. When people think about long-term supplements, they imagine a future of safety, strength, and vitality. They think, if one pill helps today, then taking it for years must guarantee decades of protection. But the truth is more complex, and sometimes dangerously misunderstood. Vitamin D3, vitamin K2, and magnesium, the trio praised as life-saving, can protect you for the long haul, but only when kept in balance. Taken together, they are a recipe for resilience. Taken the wrong way, they can quietly harm for years without warning signs. And that's why this knowledge matters. Because your health, your bones, your heart, and your future deserve more than a gamble. They deserve balance. They deserve harmony. Vitamin D3 is often celebrated as a miracle nutrient. Over the years, research has shown that it strengthens bones, reduces fracture risk, and even helps the immune system guard against infections and certain cancers. But here's the unsettling truth. When people take vitamin D in isolation, especially at high doses for years, what was once meant to heal can quietly turn toxic. Yes, your body absorbs more calcium. But without direction, that calcium may lodge in the wrong places, hardening arteries instead of building bone. Researchers in Finland discovered that those who took excessive vitamin D over long periods had a higher risk of kidney stones and heart complications. Imagine believing you're protecting your skeleton while silently turning your arteries into stone. This is where vitamin K2 reveals its extraordinary long-term value. In the famous Rotterdam study, scientists followed thousands of participants for over a decade. They found that those with higher K2 intake had significantly lower rates of heart disease, and they lived longer. Why? Because K2 activates two crucial gatekeepers, osteocalcin and matrix GLA protein. These molecules shepherd calcium into bones and teeth, while pulling it away from arteries. Without K2, years of vitamin D supplementation can become a drip of danger, hardening vessels millimeter by millimeter until heart attacks feel inevitable. With K2, the same vitamin D turns into a longevity ally, fortifying your skeleton while safeguarding your arteries. And then there's magnesium, a mineral whose long-term role is broader than most people realize. For decades, low magnesium has been linked to chronic high blood pressure, diabetes, migraines, anxiety, and sudden cardiac death. A Harvard study spanning more than 20 years showed that those with higher magnesium intake had a 30% lower risk of sudden cardiac death. But what happens if you take vitamin D for years without enough magnesium? The vitamin remains half-activated, creating what researchers call a functional vitamin D deficiency. On paper, your blood test may look fine. But at the cellular level, your body is starving. That hidden imbalance can last for years, weakening bones, raising blood pressure, and feeding chronic disease, all while you believe you're safe. Balance is the key. Too much vitamin D without K2, and your arteries may stiffen. Too much vitamin D without magnesium, and it may never activate. Too much magnesium without balance, and you could strain your kidneys or trigger dangerously low blood pressure. Balance is what separates a life-extending trio from a slow erosion of health. And the evidence is sobering. Arterial calcification, calcium buildup in arteries, is one of the strongest predictors of early death medicine has ever known. Stronger than cholesterol. Stronger than blood pressure. And long-term vitamin D without K2 can accelerate it. Yet when D3 and K2 are taken together, studies show fewer calcium deposits, even compared to people who never supplemented at all. The difference is not in the vitamin, it's in the balance. Now let's turn to bones. Osteoporosis, the silent thief of strength, affects hundreds of millions worldwide. As people age, hip, spine, and wrist fractures often mark a decline from which many never fully recover. Vitamin D improves calcium absorption, yes. But without K2, much of that calcium never reaches bone. Japanese researchers found that long-term K2 supplementation reduced fracture risk in postmenopausal women by up to 80%. That's not a small benefit. That's life-changing protection that lasts decades. And what about the brain? Magnesium plays a central role in long-term brain health. It regulates neurotransmitters and shields nerve cells from overstimulation, a process that can kill them. Chronic magnesium deficiency has been tied to higher rates of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. But when combined with vitamin D3, which supports brain resilience, and K2, which protects blood vessels inside the brain, the trio becomes a shield against cognitive decline. Decades of synergy may mean the difference between sharp memory and devastating loss. Here lies the true risk: many people treat these nutrients as separate. One person takes vitamin D for years to ward off colds. Another swallows magnesium at night for sleep. Another adds calcium for bones, unaware that without K2, it may lodge in arteries. Decades of well-intended but uncoordinated choices can add up, creating silent risks no one notices until it's too late. A heart attack. Kidney stones. A diagnosis of dementia years later. All can trace back to imbalance in the trio. And yet science offers hope. When balanced correctly, long-term supplementation doesn't just prevent harm, it can reverse damage. Studies show arterial stiffness can decline with K2. Magnesium, over time, improves insulin sensitivity, lowering diabetes risk. Vitamin D3, at optimal levels, reduces cancer risk, strengthens immunity, and fortifies bones for life. This is the power of balance. It doesn't just prevent disease, it restores health. Think of your body as a delicate ecosystem. Over decades, nutrients aren't just raw materials, they are forces of nature. Too much of one without the others is like rain without soil, or sunlight without water. But bring them together, and the ecosystem thrives. That's why cultures whose diets naturally provided this trio have enjoyed longer, healthier lives. In Japan, those who eat natto, rich in K2, show lower fracture and heart disease rates. Mediterranean populations with magnesium-rich greens, nuts, and fish experience fewer sudden deaths. Indigenous communities who lived outdoors, rich in vitamin D and mineral-dense foods, built resilience without modern supplements. Their health was not built on isolation, it was built on harmony. And that, in the end, is the secret. So what's the real lesson for us, those of us living in a modern world of pills and powders? The long-term use of vitamin D3, K2, and magnesium can be safe. It can even save lives. But safety does not come from blind repetition. It does not come from swallowing a capsule day after day without thought. True safety comes from understanding synergy, respecting science, and honoring balance. Over the years and decades, this trio can mean the difference between fragile bones or strong ones, clogged arteries or clear vessels, fading memory or a sharp, resilient mind. And the choice is yours. Will you take them in isolation, hoping for protection while quietly creating imbalance? Or will you respect the body's need for harmony and give it the full orchestra of nutrients nature intended? Long-term health is never built on shortcuts. It is built on harmony. And when it comes to vitamin D3, K2, and magnesium, harmony is not optional, it is survival. Most people picture nutrients as pills, neat little capsules lined up in plastic bottles, swallowed with morning coffee, each one a silent promise of better health. But here's the shocking truth, your body was never programmed, across millions of years of evolution, to take vitamins from factories. It was programmed to take them from food, from sunlight, from the earth itself. Supplements can help fill gaps, yes. But they are not the foundation. Food is the foundation. Take vitamin D3. Your ancestors didn't swallow it in capsules, they created it in their skin under the sun. Just 15 minutes of sunlight can turn skin into a living vitamin factory. Research shows that those who regularly spend time outdoors have stronger bones, better immunity, and lower risks of depression and cancer. Yet today, over 1 billion people are deficient in vitamin D because we live indoors, behind glass, behind screens, cut off from our biological fuel. Pills are a patch. Sunlight is the real medicine. When sunlight isn't possible, food steps in. Fatty fish like salmon, sardines, and mackerel. Egg yolks from pasture-raised hens. Liver, once a staple food, now almost forgotten. These aren't just sources of D3. They also deliver omega-3 fats, proteins, and antioxidants, synergies no capsule can copy. Now, consider vitamin K2, the most neglected nutrient in the modern diet. For centuries, cultures unknowingly protected their hearts and bones by eating fermented foods. In Japan, natto, a sticky fermented soybean dish, provides abundant K2, and Japan has some of the lowest fracture and heart disease rates in the world. In Europe, traditionally aged cheeses like Gouda and Brie were natural K2 sources. These foods didn't just deliver one vitamin, they carried microbes, proteins, and compounds that trained the gut, strengthened immunity, and built resilience over decades. Contrast that with today's Western diet, stripped of fermentation, stripped of balance. No wonder calcification and osteoporosis rise each year. The tragedy is that millions take calcium pills without K2, believing they are strengthening bones, while silently clogging arteries. A food-first approach flips the script, delivering K2 exactly as nature designed, in harmony with fats and proteins, ensuring calcium flows to the right places. And then there is magnesium, the mineral of life. It doesn't come from a pill. It comes from the soil. Plants draw it in. Seeds, nuts, and greens store it. Ancient diets, rich in wild plants, beans, and mineral water, provided hundreds of milligrams each day. But modern farming has drained the soil. Today, even fresh vegetables may contain 20 to 40% less magnesium than 50 years ago. No wonder nearly 70% of people now live deficient, tired, anxious, hypertensive, with irregular heartbeats, without ever knowing why. Supplements can patch the gaps, yes. But whole foods, spinach, kale, pumpkin seeds, almonds, avocados, and even dark chocolate, offer magnesium in its most absorbable form, alongside fiber, antioxidants, and phytonutrients. A square of dark chocolate doesn't just give you magnesium, it gives flavonoids that protect the heart and sharpen the brain. That synergy no pill can match. The science is clear. Nutrients in isolation behave differently than nutrients in food. Harvard researchers have shown again and again that diets rich in whole foods reduce chronic disease, while heavy reliance on supplements alone often fails to provide the same protection, and sometimes raises risk. Too much calcium without K2 raises heart attack risk. Too much vitamin D without magnesium raises blood calcium to dangerous levels. But in food, nature never isolates. She packages nutrients in balance, with proteins, fats, minerals, and cofactors that guarantee safety. That is why cultures grounded in whole food diets, Mediterranean, Japanese, indigenous, live longer, healthier lives without bottles of pills. The Mediterranean diet, rich in greens, fish, nuts, and fermented dairy, provides D3, magnesium, and K2 naturally, in ratios the body understands. No wonder Mediterranean populations show lower heart disease, stronger bones, and longer lifespans. Not because of a miracle pill, but because of the synergy of food. Or consider Japan, where natto and seafood deliver D3 and K2 together. Their fracture rates are among the lowest in the world. They consume less calcium than Western nations, yet balance, not volume, protects their bones. Supplements still have their place. In dark winters, vitamin D drops can save lives. For those on restricted diets, magnesium capsules can close dangerous gaps. For those without access to fermented foods, K2 capsules can step in. But here's the rule, supplements should never replace food. They should only complete it. They are tools, not foundations. Long-term safety comes from using them wisely, not recklessly. A capsule without balance is a gamble. A diet built on whole foods is an investment in survival. Think about this at the cellular level. Every bite of food sends thousands of chemical signals coursing through your body. A fillet of salmon rich in vitamin D3 also brings omega-3 fats that calm inflammation, proteins that rebuild tissue, and selenium that shields your DNA. A handful of pumpkin seeds packed with magnesium also delivers zinc for immunity, fiber for gut health, and antioxidants that guard your heart. A slice of natto brimming with K2 also nourishes your microbiome, the trillions of bacteria that regulate immunity and metabolism. This is the symphony of life. Food plays the whole music. Supplements, at best, provide single notes. And here is the warning. Over decades, relying on supplements while neglecting food creates imbalance. Rising rates of obesity, diabetes, and heart disease in supplement-heavy yet diet-poor populations prove the point. You cannot out-supplement a poor diet. One pill cannot erase the damage of processed food, refined sugar, and nutrient-empty meals. But a diet rich in whole foods can reduce the need for supplements, restore balance naturally, and extend life. That's why physicians like Dr. William Li remind us, food is medicine. It is the most powerful, most accessible, and safest medicine we have ever known. So the real question isn't whether you should take vitamin D3, K2, or magnesium for the long term. The deeper question is, will you seek them first in the food you eat, in the sunlight you embrace, and in the lifestyle you choose? Or will you simply reach for bottles, hoping that what science sealed in a capsule can replace what nature has perfected? Long-term health demands food first. Supplements second. That isn't just good advice, it is survival advice. Because in the end, your body was never designed to live on pills. It was designed to thrive on the gifts of nature. And when you honor that design, balance returns, health is protected, and your future is lengthened.